Hello everyone, welcome to Pronounce It with Eleuterio. Today we are going to discuss diphthongs and triphthongs, which are variations of vowel sounds. In the previous lesson, remember we introduced the study of English vowels. We've said that the vowels are those sounds that we produce without any obstruction to the airflow. And we also studied how we can classify the vowels. We said that we can classify them according to the tongue height or according to the lip shape. According to the tongue height, remember, they can be front, back, closed, or open. And according to the lip shape, they can be rounded, unrounded, and neutral. The video about English vowels is available on the card. Just click on the link and watch the lesson. Now for today, we are going to discuss diphthongs and triphthongs. What do we call diphthongs? Diphthongs is when a vowel glides to another. When a vowel 1 goes to a vowel 2 and they form a sound, we call them diphthongs. We call diphthongs because there are two sounds, so that's why it's diphthong. It comes from two. So we have two types of diphthongs. We have centering diphthongs and closing diphthongs. We say that a diphthong is centering when a vowel glides to the center. In the center, we find the vowel schwa that we pronounce it as So when a vowel glides to the center and then they form a sound, we call it a centering diphthong. How many centering diphthongs we have? As you can see here, we have 1, 2, 3 types of centering diphthong. We have the diphthong ia, that is when the vowel e glides to the center, it forms a ear. And then when the vowel e also glides to the center, we have air. And finally, when the vowel u also glides to the center, it forms ua. So we have ia, air, and ua. Can we move on? Now let's talk about the closing diphthongs. We have we divide the closing diphthongs into two. We have closing diphthongs that end in e and closing diphthongs that end in u. The closing diphthongs that end in e are those first, they are closed because they glide to the closed vowel. Remember the previous lessons about the closed vowels? So we have e and u as closed vowel. So when they glide to the vowel e, we have I, which is when this vowel a glides to a front vowel, which is e, like this. We have I, and then the vowel e also goes to the e, to the front vowel e. We have a, and then we have the vowel o that glides to the front vowel e and forms a oi. So we have I, a, and oi, oi. Now we have the closing diphthongs ending in u. We have the vowel a that glides and goes to the u and they form ow, ow. And then we have the vowel schwa that goes and meets the vowel u and form a o, o. So we have ow, ow, and o, o. These are the diphthongs that we have in English language. To be more familiarized with where do we find these diphthongs, let's now have a look at some examples so that now you can start thinking about where you've heard or seen a diphthong, but you didn't know it was a diphthong. Well, let's now start with the centering diphthongs. We have ear, air, and or. We find the diphthong ear in words like near and beer. So this is where we find the sound right after the consonant. The following letters or they represent this sound ear. For example, here we have near and beer. Did you notice where do we find the sound ear? After the consonant. Na, in this word, we find the sound ear. And in this word, we find after the consonant ba, we find the sound ear. That's why I've highlighted here so that you can understand where exactly the diphthong is placed in these words. Let's now move on to the diphthong air. We find the diphthong air it's in words like pear. You see, pear. After the consonant pa, we find the sound air in this word. And here we have hair. After the consonant ha, we find the sound air. And we have the diphthong ua that we find in words like tua or poor. Tua, poor. So right after the consonant, we find the sound ua. In this word too, after the consonant pa, we find the sound ua. Let's now move to the closing diphthongs. Starting with those ending with e, we find I, a, and oi. I we find in words like my or pie. You see, right after the consonant ma, the y here, it represents the sound I. And in this word here, right after the consonant pa, we find the sound I as well. Pie. Moving on, we find the diphthong a. A we find in words like play, wait, stay. So in this particular case, we find the sound a right after the two consonants pa and la. We find the sound a, play, play. And in this word, we find the sound a right after the first consonant, which is wa. We find the sound a. Let's now pronounce way, way. Finally, we have the diphthong oi. We find oi in words like boy or employ. The sound oi in this word is placed right after the first consonant. Boy, boy. And here we find it at the end. Employ, employ. So this is where we find the diphthong. So these examples show us that the diphthong is not always placed in the same location or same environment. We can find it right after the first consonant, but we can also find it at the end or in the middle. It depends. It doesn't have a specific location or placement. Now we end with the diphthongs ending in u. Ow and o. We find ow in words like loud and shout. In here, we find the sound ow in the middle, you see? Right after the consonant la, we find the sound ow. Let's all pronounce loud, loud. And then here in this word shout, we find it right after the two first consonants. We say shout, shout. This is where we find the sound ow, I mean. And finally, we have the diphthong o that we find in words like low or goat. Low, goat. So here we find the sound o right after the first consonant. Here, this is where it's placed, low. And here it is placed Right after the first consonant as well, we find the sound O here. Goat, goat. So this is what I had to tell you about diphthongs. I now challenge you to show me some examples of diphthongs in some words, and don't forget to highlight where exactly we find that sound. Now let's move on to another part of our lesson where we are going to discuss the triphthongs. Now let's discuss what are triphthongs. Well, we call triphthong a glide from a vowel to a second one and then to a third one. So we have three vowels together forming a sound. We call them triphthongs. As shown here, we have a vowel, it glides, it meets the second, and then it meets the third one. This is what we call triphthong. Now, a triphthong, what is exactly a triphthong? A triphthong, we form a triphthong joining a closing diphthong with schwa. And then we have triphthong. We have the closing diphthongs, remember the ones that end in E and the ones that end in U. So all of them, they glide until they meet schwa vowel or and they form a triphthong. Let's start with the ones that end in E. Have the diphthong I and the vowel schwa, they form aya, aya. And then we have the diphthong A with the vowel schwa, they form ea. And the diphthong oi with schwa, they form oya. So we have aya, ea, and oya. Where do we find the triphthong aya? We find aya in words like fire, tire, higher, and many other words. So in this particular case, this is where the sound aya is placed, right after the fa sound. Fire, fire. And here, right after the ta sound, we find the sound aya as well. Tire, tire. And in this case, we have the triphthong aya. Where do we find aya? In words like prayer, player, air. So that's where we find the triphthong aya. Here in this case, we find it in this, it is located here. Prayer, prayer. And here it's also located at the end of the word. Player, player, air, prayer, player. And we have the triphthong oi, which comes from oi and schwa, and they form oya. We find oya in words like royal and lawyer. Royal, lawyer. Let's now move on to the final ones, which are ow and o. If we join schwa and ow, we find awa. Again, awa. And if we join o with schwa, we have owa, owa. So where do we find awa? In words like tower, power, hour, and many other words. So this is where it's placed. We find right after the ta sound, we have tawa, tawa. And here, power, power. If you pronounce the words correctly, you will be able to tell where it's located, where the sound is located, if that is the correct sound or not. And we have finally the triphthong oa. We find in words like lower and soa. Lower, soa. Right after the sound la, we find the sound oa. Lower, lower. And here, soa, soa. This is it, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave in the comments any words that you know with any of these triphthongs and diphthongs as well. Tell me where do you watch me from. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. I'll see you in the next lesson. Take care.